In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. We forever thank Almighty God for coming as it was written and prophesied that He would come, to seek and to save that which was lost. And we can find no other people fitting the description of the lost brother, the lost sister, or the lost sheep, except we, the 50 million or more, mentally and spiritually dead, black men and black women here in the hells of North America. And so we thank Him for coming in the person of Master Khalid Muhammad and raising up in our midst a divine leader, a divine teacher, and a divine guide in the person of His messenger and His Messiah to the black man and black woman here in the hells of North America, the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. And we thank the two of them for the man who is my teacher and my mentor, and the man who is responsible for my spiritual rites of passage. I speak of none other than the premier leader, not only here in the hells of North America, but throughout the world, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. In their names, I greet you here at D&J Book Distributors in Queens, and to Brother Mark, and to his queen, and to others who are responsible for this forum. I greet you with the greeting words of peace. Assalamu alaikum. Hotep. Shalom. Share Lafia Ni. And free the land and black laws for all black people. Again, it is my honor to be here and to speak to you on such a timely topic during this period when the birth of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is observed by many and celebrated by many. The subject that you have given me, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, human rights and civil rights, the challenge of the 21st century, is quite a challenging subject. Of all our studies, of course, history is best qualified and most attractive to reward our research. If we know what happened yesterday, we can intelligently discuss today, because today is built on yesterday, and tomorrow is built on today. And we should be intelligent enough that if we know what happened yesterday, that we are not likely to let the same thing go down again today. Our unity in sisterhood, brotherhood, and struggle is profound, principled, and forever. We choose the revolution of our people and the liberation of our people as our life's goal, and struggle as the method to achieve it. Our struggle is constantly and continuously against the oppressor and against all in us, which is in contradiction to our values and the choice we've made. We choose the liberation of our people, and our choice is conscious, full, and free. And we accept all risk and welcome all rewards it might bring. We have nothing better and more revolutionary and rewarding to do with our lives than to struggle. Struggle to bring into being a new world, a world in which we, our children, and our families can breathe and create and stand and walk in a warmer sun. This is the Kawaida Kiapo. And I want to begin with a note from Langston Hughes, since at this time of the year there is so much talk about the dream and the dreamer. Langston Hughes gives us this as it was made popular through Lorraine Hansberry in A Raisin in the Sun. And it begins, what happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Brothers and sisters, in a laboratory, no experiment is a failure. Even if the results of that experiment only proves that it can't be done that way, that experiment is not a failure. The experiment of the life and legacy of the man that we know to be Martin Luther King Jr., the experiment of that life was not a failure. It was not a failure. It serves us well today. Because even if it does nothing else, it tells us that it can't work that way. And when you find out in an experiment that it can't work that way, then the results advances your study, advances your research, and it should put you on firm footing toward real resolution and the best results that you might hope for. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., here 30 years ago, and as he walked in Selma, Alabama, and worked in Selma, Alabama, and Birmingham, Alabama, and Montgomery, Alabama, and Chicago, and throughout the hells of North America, as the chairman or as the leader of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, as Dr. King worked 30 years ago for us, it is written in the scriptures, what greater love could a man have or a woman than to lay down their life for their brother, for their sister, for their friend? Dr. King laid down his life for us. And if for no other reason, we must honor him for laying down his life for us, but we must analyze his life. And we, as the most honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us, that it is after one has made the transition, after they have made the transition to what some call death, but what others call to the realm of the ancestors or the egungun, then a period can be placed behind the testament of that life. And then we can carefully and critically make an analysis of that life. Dr. King laid down his life for us, and Dr. King believed in the moral conscience of the white man. And since we're talking about civil rights and human rights here tonight, I think it's fitting that we begin right there. He believed in the moral conscience of the white man. Well, I'm here tonight at D&J to tell you that the white man ain't got no morals and he ain't got no conscience. Dr. King believed in civil rights. Well, I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too civil and he ain't too right. Malcolm believed in human rights. I'm here to tell you that the white man ain't too human and he ain't too right. It makes no difference whether it's civil rights or human rights. You must weigh the circumstances surrounding the very origin of the white man into the world to then determine if he's capable of being civil, if he's capable of being human. This we must put on the scale of Ma'at and give it the meiotic weigh-in and see if it strikes the meiotic balance. And if it does not strike the meiotic balance, then we must make sure that we are not victims of history, because it is written that he or she who does not learn the lessons of history is doomed to repeat them. 30 years ago, the prestigious, pristine presidential White House commission set up by Lyndon Baines Johnson, a redneck camel breath hunky from Texas, an outlaw from Texas, a gun-slinging outlaw from Texas. Lyndon Baines Johnson set up the Kerner Commission. And the Kerner Commission determined that America 30 years ago was two Americas, one black and one white, separate and unequal, and that the number one problem in America 30 years ago was white racism. 30 years later, after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Kerner Commission has reconvened and determined that America is still two Americas, one black and one white, separate still, unequal still, and that the number one problem in America today is still white racism. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., they questioned Jet Magazine staff, and journalists questioned the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They questioned Sister Coretta Scott King. They questioned his daughter. They questioned his son. They questioned the Reverend Wyatt T. Walker. They questioned former city councilman Hosea Williams, who was one of his right-hand men. They questioned Andy Young, former mayor of Atlanta, Georgia, and former ambassador to the United Nations. They questioned them, and they questioned others, and they put the question to them about success or failure. They put the question to them, have we really made progress 30 years after Dr. King? They wanted them to analyze the dream of Dr. King, and they all said that they could see some change here and there, but they all agreed that America had a long, long way to go. Some of them were even specific. 30 years after Dr. King, if we're going to deal with civil rights and human rights, and we're going to weigh it properly, we must understand that affirmative action, which was important to Dr. King, but never has been important to me, because the action has never been affirmative. We don't need affirmative action. We need reparations and freedom and independence, liberation and salvation. But affirmative action was important to Dr. King. 30 years after Dr. King, affirmative action does not even remain a dream anymore. It's a nightmare now. A recalcitrant cold wind blowing through Congress, blowing through the Senate, blowing through the White House, whistling throughout the hells of North America, has now swept affirmative action almost but from the scene today. 30 years after the dream of the dreamer, Section 8 entitlements, quota systems that were supposed to level the playing field after people had been robbed of their names, their language, their religion, their culture, their God, their folkways, their mores, their norms, robbed of the very power of our own being. All of that is being erased today. Such measures that were supposed to be set up to level the playing field. Now you've got devils, you've got so-called Jews, imposter Jews coming up with theories and theorems on a bell curve. Other crackers saying that we are genetically inferior. Other crackers saying that we are stuck at the bottom. Other crackers saying that we are black jelly beans stuck at the bottom of the bag or the jar. Look at it. You break both of my legs, and then you call a race. Break both of my legs, and you stand, somebody working with you, stands at the starter's line, fires the starter's pistol, and you're the only one running. You break the tape, And then you turn around and criticize me because I haven't made it to the finish line yet. I'm dragging along because you've broken both of my damn legs. How could you expect me to finish? The white man breaks our legs and then has a race and then says, well, you really are intellectually inferior to me. You rob me of my name, my language, my religion, my culture, my God, my folkways, my mores, my norms, and then you turn around and give me a goddamn test? How could you expect me to score like you? 30 years after Dr. King, a Negro sits on the Supreme Court bench named Clarence Thomas, standing always against his people and always for the enemy who put him there, married to a big dinosaur-looking white woman. Looked like he going home to Jurassic Park every time he go home. Nigga have to get on a step ladder just to get some sugar from that big, tall white woman. And I don't know why we do that. Don't know why we do that. Go and get the biggest, ugliest white woman we can find. Clarence Thomas have to hug her on one side and the beast is so big and then run around and hug her on the other side. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., there's a rise in the Ku Klux Klan. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the dream of the dreamer and his civil rights. 30 years after Minister Malcolm X, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, Brother Omar Wale, and his dream of human rights. 30 years thereafter, the white man still considers us 3/5 of a human being. At the Million Man March, we had well over 1 million to 1.5 million, maybe even 2 million, convened by the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. The first foolishness was talking about separating the messenger from the message, which came out by Messy Jesse. He popularized this madness about separating the messenger from the message. Close to 1.5 million, 2 million. And the crackers say he saw 400,000. Why? It's because the cracker was still counting us as 3/5 of a human being. He got mixed up on them fractions. Got them fractions mixed up. 30 years after Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., a rise in the Ku Klux Klan, a rise in the Aryan Brotherhood, a rise in the American Nazi Party, a rise in the skinheads, a rise in militia groups, a rise in right-wing paramilitary hate organizations and hate groups and night riders and day riders as existed during Reconstruction. 30 years after Martin Luther King Jr., the Supreme Court has handed down a ruling in various states across the country. 30 years after Minister Malcolm X, Brother Omar Wale, El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, one believing in civil rights, one believing in human rights. 30 years after both of them, Malcolm said we must vote in a solid block, that we must vote in a black solid block. 30 years after Malcolm, the Supreme Court has handed down a decision ruling it unconstitutional for you to have what they call majority-minority voting blocks. And so gerrymandering and remaneuvering, and so now they're taking small black districts, brown districts, and dumping them over into bigger white districts to bust up your black voting block, which lets you know that you can register to vote all the hell you want to, but voting will never get your behind out of this condition. You running around registering to vote. Some of you don't have to clap for me. You say, well, he's stepping on some toes now. And I know they got that camera running, and I don't want the camera to catch me applauding because I'm really with these folks and I'm with those folks. Nigga, you should be with the truth. Stand up for the truth. Stop dilly-dallying. Stop pussyfooting. Stop beating around the bush. Tiptoeing through the tulips. Speak the truth regardless of circumstance, and stand up on the truth from the cradle to the grave. That's your divine responsibility and duty to our people here, generations yet unborn, and to our ancestors who have gone on. That's your duty, and that's your responsibility. And so the voting blocks being busted up today. Unconstitutional to have a so-called majority minority voting district. 30 years after Dr. King, the white man is killing us, it appears, like never before. You talk about slavery. You talk about the plantation. You talk about lynching. But when he kills a Yusuf Hawkins, when he kills a Philip Purnell, when he kills an Anthony Baez, when he kills a Brother Aswad, when he kills a Jerry Lee Amy and a Eula May Love, when he pulls the trigger and kills a Johnny Gamage or chokes a Johnny Gamage, or when he kills a Tyrone Lewis in St. Petersburg or Pittsburgh or wherever we are. It's 3 over here, it's 5 over there, it's 10 here, it's 20 there, it's 50 over there. He's lynching us today with a modern kind of lynching, and he's killing us today faster than he killed us on the plantation. You can't hang as many niggers from a tree and put a noose around their neck as you can pulling the trigger with an automatic and a semi-automatic weapon. But you miss 30 years after King and 30 years after Malcolm making a careful, critical, and correct analysis of what's going on. Because some of you still want to hold on. Maybe nobody in here. Maybe that's the ones who didn't come. In fact, let's establish some rules now. If I say anything that you don't like, just say, he ain't talking about me. Talking about somebody else. All right? Some of us are crazier today than we were when Malcolm was here, than we were when Martin was here. Some of you got your tikis and your sandals and your boobas and your dashikis and your red and your black and your green and your mud cloth and your kente cloth, and Christmas, you had a damn Christmas tree in your house. You got your afro, you got your dreadlocks, you got your African braids, you got all of that. You crowned and gowned to the ground. But you got a dead tree that the peckerwood sold you in your house with some kente ribbon on it, with a Santa Claus with red, black, and green on. You got a red, black, and green stocking over the fireplace. You have taken this madness and dressed it up and tried to give it an African flavor. Some of you today, 30 years after Malcolm, 30 years after Martin, 30 years after the call for civil rights and human rights, some of you are still quoting the white man's corrupt constitution and his Declaration of Independence and his Bill of his Bill of Rights. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And they are endowed by their Creator by certain unalienable rights, that to these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Let's look at that. Would you hold this for me, son? This is my son, Farrakhan. Give me a strong black. This book is what color? Black. Black. Is that it? It's all right, you can talk about it. What color is it? Black. This is just plain toilet paper, unused. Plain toilet paper. It's just wet. This is big, it's heavy, and it's black. This is what? It's small, it's light, and it's white. I'm here to tell you tonight, from the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Farrakhan from the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. There is nothing equal in the universe. One of your eyes is higher than the other one or lower than the other. One is bigger than the other. One leg is shorter than the other one, long as some of us walk like it. Some of us we know that one of our arms is longer than the other arm. There is nothing equal in the universe, but everything in nature has been created equal. Everything in nature has been created equally, but not equal. Let's look at it. Again, black, big, and heavy. Huh? That's right. Small, light, and white. But when I drop it into a law, look carefully now, look down, don't look up. And this ain't no magic, this ain't no abracadabra. This is not no hocus pocus, no shazam. Watch. They both hit the floor at the same time. Let's look at it another way. This is what? White. Talk back to me. Talk black to me. This is what color? White. This is what? White. All right. Let's look at it. We hold the two of them up. They're not equal, are they? No. One is big, one is small. One is white, one is black. Come on. Huh? Yes. One is heavy, one is light. They're not equal, but they have been created equally. And when you drop them into God's law, we did it at first with black being bigger and heavier and white being smaller and lighter. Now we do it the opposite way. And when we drop them, they both fall into a law and they both hit the floor, what? At the same time. Let's look at it even further. Freedom is a law of nature. Freedom is a law of nature, and justice is deeply rooted in the universal order of things. And it is the divine intent of the Almighty, all-wise God and Creator that everything live equally under His creation. Let's look at it. The ant and the anteater, the chicken and the chicken hawk. It makes no difference what it is in nature. All have been created equally, but not equal. Everything must have food. You with me? Yes, sir. Water, air, and the proper environmental and atmospheric condition. The ant must have food. The ant must have water. The ant must have air. The ant must have the proper atmospheric and environmental conditions to continue to live. But on the other hand, the anteater must have food. It just turns out that the ant is the food of the anteater. The anteater must have food, must have water, must have air, must have the proper environmental and atmospheric conditions. Let's look at the chicken and the chicken hawk. Both of them must have food. Both must have air. Both must have water and the proper atmospheric and environmental condition. It just so happens that the chicken is the food of the chicken hawk. Nature is set up with predators and prey. And we have been the prey of the white man for the past 4,000 to 6,000 years of his sojourn here on our planet. The brown man and woman, the red man and woman, the yellow man and woman, all have been the prey of the white man. The white man is our natural enemy. I know nobody teaches that too much anymore. We've gotten sophisticated now. We talk all up in the clouds now. We talk all kinds of proper talk and talk that borderlines that we might be trying to get away, but we also look like we're trying to stay. All at the same time. We're dreaming of a brighter day in America. We got to search for tomorrow in America. I cannot change, and I will not change. And God damn it, don't ask me to change, because I'm not going to. The white man is not a devil, but the white man is the devil. And if the white man is not the devil, he's going to have to do until the real devil gets here. Civil rights and human rights, the challenge of the 21st century. Look at it. If you're going to look at Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, you got to look at them in phases. You got Old Testament Malcolm and New Testament Malcolm. You got Old Testament Martin and New Testament Martin. Old Testament Martin had a soft line. Old Testament Martin had a soft line. New Testament Martin moved toward a harder line. Criticized America, challenged America, called America, stepped out of the realm of Negro affairs, stepped out of the box into the international arena, and started comparing the war in Vietnam with what black people were facing right here in the hells of North America. On the Ho Chi Minh Trail or the Edmund Pettus Bridge, Martin started making a comparison. So that's Old Testament Martin and New Testament Martin, from a softer line to a harder line. And I don't mind being unpopular if I stand on truth. I must say that there's again an Old Testament Malcolm and a New Testament Malcolm. Old Testament Malcolm leaned toward a harder line. New Testament Malcolm moved toward a softer line. Give a damn whether you applaud. Don't give a damn whether you nod your head. Don't give a damn whether you smile. I know they're not going to give you your money back, so you might as well just sit back and relax and deal with it. Let's look at it. Old Testament Malcolm said, a revolution is bloody. A revolution knows no compromise. A revolution uproots and overturns everything that gets in its path. Old Testament Malcolm said, if you knew what a revolution was, why, you wouldn't even use that word in your vocabulary. Old Testament Malcolm said, if you knew what a revolution was, why, you get back in the alley. That's Old Testament Malcolm. Old Testament Malcolm said, all white folks are the devil. He said, none of them are any good. He said, if you find one that you think is good, kill him first before he turned bad. That's Old Testament Malcolm. Because just as sure as the sun shines, the guy's going to turn bad. I'm telling you, buddy, he's going to turn bad. No, make no mistake about it. The guy can't help it. Gee whiz. Golly gee. If you think anything else, it's far out, buddy. It's far out. Jimininis. Old Testament Malcolm used not only spiritual and political and cultural terminology, he used revolutionary terminology as well. What does this say? Okay. And we read it? Everybody look and say, what does it say? Did it say leave Malcolm alone? Did it say stop criticizing Martin? You really want to know what it said? You don't want to know what it said. You don't want to know what it said, do you? How many want to know what it said? Don't lie. You want to know what it said. I really want to know. Let me see your hand. How many don't want to know what it said? Raise your lying hand. It just says, can you take a 15-minute break? At some point, take a 15-minute break. And we're going to do that, and then we'll reconvene. All right? Is that all right with everybody? He said, that ain't really say that. Everybody all right? We were talking about Old Testament Malcolm and New Testament Malcolm, Old Testament Martin, and New Testament Martin. Martin from a softer line to a hard line. Malcolm from a hard line to a softer line. Not a soft line, but a softer line. New Testament Malcolm went back to Saudi Arabia. Now, he'd already gone in 59. And whatever he saw when he went back the second time, now believe me, he saw it the first time. All right? Okay? All right? Yeah, I got to drop some ebonics up off in here. All right. I drop a little ebonics. Y'all the folk to know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? You the folk to know. He went to Mecca. This takes nothing away from him. These are lives that were not allowed to be private lives. These were lives that were lived before our eyes. You see, you can make your changes, and a lot of times people don't see your changes. Huh? You get in the shower and change. You sitting on the throne in the toilet and change and come out a new person. Everything came out all right. Some of you go to one Juma prayer, you're a changed person. You go to one Juma prayer and you come back, brother and your wife don't even know you. You're Khalid Abdul Rahman Suleiman Kareem the Magnificent the Third. Abdullah. Got an Arabic accent and one Juma prayer. You come back in the door, Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. And she said, all right, baby. And she, Assalamu alaikum, I love you, baby. And she said, well, what's the matter, baby? No, I'm not baby anymore. I'm Khalid Rasul Kareem Rahman. You go on. She said, nigga, I know you. You Willie Bobo. You go and take 30 minutes of karate. Try to slant your damn eyes in the mirror. Want to eat chop suey and egg foo young all the time. We just wow. Robbed so thoroughly of a knowledge of self until everybody's culture makes an impression on us. The best way to defeat the oppressor's culture and alien culture is to live your own. It's to live your own. That's the best way to defeat it. New Testament Malcolm went back to Saudi Arabia after he had been the first time. And he went in and he came, he wrote postcards back. He sent letters back saying, here I am in Mecca, and it's a sight to behold. Here I am, he said, sleeping on the same mat, eating from the same bowl, drinking from the same cup, with men whose skin is the whitest of white, whose hair is the blondest of blonde, whose eyes are the bluest of blue. This proves that it can work, that integration can work. He was interviewed. He said, I was in Mecca, he said, and I was with men whose skin would be considered white in Mecca. He said, but they had Islam. And he said Islam made them different. Islam didn't allow them to act like racists. And that's what the white man in America needs, Malcolm said. He needs Islam. Well, wait, let me tell you something. I've been to Mecca 8 times. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I came back each time believing that the white man was more the devil after I got back than before I went over there. There are Muslims who don't want you to talk about this. We got to deal with the truth. Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. There is no division in Islam. There is no invidious class distinction in Islam. I'll be damned. I was in Mecca at the Mitar, or the airport. The biggest delegation to come to Mecca is represented by the blue, black, purple, black Nigerians and Senegalese from West Africa. West Africa sends the biggest delegation. Some of our brothers and sisters so beautiful, so black, looked like they would spit ink. It's black, spit black ink. I saw some of them, their greatest dream, even though they might be 70 or 80, some in their 90s, is to just make it to the holy city of Mecca one time in their life before they pass on. Some of them want to die in Mecca. That's their dream their whole life through. I saw elder sisters looking like they were 80 years, 90 years old in the airport. I saw racist white Arabs with their gutra and their metob and all of that they wear. I saw them run through the airport and grab elder Nigerian sisters and Senegalese sisters and grab them and snatch them and just throw them across the airport. And I'd run to their white behinds and grab them and throw them against the damn wall. And couldn't speak Arabic, but I was telling them, that's my great-grandmother that you just, whether I ever met her before, that's my great-grandmother that I left in Africa generations down the line. I saw ghettos in Mecca. Tell me nothing about Mecca. I saw them come out with bread in their robes, in their thobes, and black people be there stuck or stranded there because they just wanted to be somewhere close to what they call the sacred precinct. And I see them arrogantly walk out and throw bread up in the sky and let it hit the ground, and our people eat off the ground. In an oil-rich Saudi Arabia, pumping billions of barrels and billions of dollars. Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi from a root etymologically, it's a similar root to Aswad, which means black, Arabia. If you're confused on that, read Chancellor Williams. Dr. Chancellor Williams said that all of that area changed from black to brown to white. From black to brown to white. That they drove us from the centers of power. And they set up in Saudi Arabia, as they call it today. They set up in what is called Israel today. They set up in Syria. They set up in Jordan. They set up in Morocco and Algeria, if I didn't say it. They set up in Egypt. They set up in Libya. They set up in all of those areas and drove us from the centers of power. And those areas changed from black to brown to white. You don't want to talk about that. You say, well, what about slavery? Let's talk about slavery in Islam. I haven't seen the slavery, but I'll tell you what I did see. I was in Medina at Masjid al-Nabi, the Prophet's mosque in Medina. I saw these men with their eyes back in their head. Their temples were recessed into their head, gaunt looking. looking East African or looking Ethiopian or Somalian or Eritrean, which is all the same, until the white man started his game over there. They were rough on the women in the mosque. They were just grabbing women and throwing them all over the place. I didn't mind as long as they were throwing the white women. I wasn't like Malcolm. I didn't say nothing about that. But if they put their hand on a sister, I'd grab the hand and check them. So I asked, who are these men? And people say, you don't know who that is? It's a whole group of them. I said, no, who are they? They said, those. They said, those are the eunuchs. My brain locked. I said, what are they, unique? What do they mean? And I guess they are unique. They said, eunuchs, you know what a eunuch is? I say, yeah. They say, yeah, you know, they're reproductive, their regenerative organ. Their sex organ was cut off by the white Arabs. I got furious. I said, what? They said they bring them over from Africa. And they cut their regenerative and reproductive organs off so that they can watch over their harems and watch over their many women, and they not have to worry about the African brother impregnating one of their women. I had nightmares, dreams about these brothers. For nights, they were very antisocial. They didn't want to deal with anyone. They stayed among themselves. They had this kind of resentment, as I said, for women and for anything outside of their immediate circle. I saw that to the degree that I could see it with my own eyes, because some of you, you asked them crazy questions. I didn't see that far. No, somebody will say, did you really see? That's a fool. And I know we got a question and answer period coming up, so I'm trying to discourage the fools before we even get started. So if you're thinking about asking me that, don't ask me no damn silly question. And anyway, there was nothing to see. They had been castrated. Castrated. Now that's going on today. So when there are rumors about slavery, because you're a Muslim, you might want to hide and say, well, I don't think so, and that's wrong. And it might be wrong, and it might be coming through the wrong channels. But the enemy having another plan for putting it out there, exacerbating tensions and exaggerating stories. But I have reason to believe that it could be true, but I have no proof, and I must be honest, except proof of the eunuchs is proof enough for me. I was in the Sudan, and I was sitting with Brother Sadiq al-Mahdi with the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. We were at Sadiq al-Mahdi's home, and out of the clear black or blue, I asked one of my questions. The minister looked at me. I said, Brother Sadiq, do our people here in the Sudan consider themselves Muslim, or, no, I didn't say that. Do they consider themselves Arab or African? He never hesitated. He said Arabs. Now, he's in the Sudan. He said, we are Arabs. Anyone who speaks the Arabic language is an Arab. I said, brother, that sounds, the minister looked at me. But he didn't stop me, though. He let me go on. I said, that sounds like Arab imperialism to me. You mean you're an African and you deny your Africanism? To say that you're an Arab, I could have understood a little bit. If he would have said, we are Muslim, then he would have been dealing with something in a religious or a spiritual realm. But he said, we are Arab. And I hear many arrogant Arabs say, oh, assalamu alaikum, alhamdulillah. We are so happy that you have accepted our religion, Islam. Say it's not your religion. All that I'm covering now deals with Malcolm's dream of human rights. You can't get human rights legislated from The Hague in Netherlands. You can't get human rights legislated from any white European body on the face of the planet Earth. You can't take your case to a world court. Malcolm, we love you for all that you have done, but 30 years later, we must make a careful, critical, and correct analysis. You can't take your case before the United Nations. Rockefeller paid for a greater portion of the very ground that the United Nations is sitting on. All of the African nations and Asian nations can vote together in a solid block. And one cracker, one stinking cracker can walk to the podium, may not even walk to the podium, hit a button or hit a lever at the desk and veto. One cracker can veto all of the votes put together. Am I lying? How many know what I'm talking about? Let me see your hand. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just keep your damn hand down. Some of you won't raise your hand. You don't have to raise your hand. Hell, you know some of the ones that didn't raise their hand know I'm telling the truth. But you want to keep the lie out there because some don't want to give this white man up. Human rights. You are the human. You are the human. He is not a human. You are the human. You naturally have the moral and spiritual and ethical nature. I'll do that in part 2 after the break. I'll lay this out and I'll cover it after the break. I've been, and I will get back to Malcolm in a minute. I've been to Muslim countries. I've been to Christian countries. I've been to capitalist countries. I've been to socialist countries. I've been to communist countries. I've been to so-called Jew countries. And no matter what the social, political, economic, academics system is, wherever the black-white dynamic existed, I found the white on top and the black on the bottom. If it was based on race, I saw the white race on top, black race on the bottom. If it was based on class, I saw the white folks in the upper class and black people in the lower class. I'll go into it a little deeper when we get back. We'll go back into Islam. Islam cannot change the white man. Stop telling that lie. Nothing can change the white man. The white man is coded that way. You want to believe with this human rights and civil rights talk, you want to believe that there are good white folks and bad white folks. There's just two kinds of white folks. Bad white folks and worse white folks. That's all it is. I know some of you with all of your African adornment got a white girlfriend, got a white boyfriend. You ain't got to raise your hand. We can look at you and see Susie in your eyes. You don't get off so easy, sister. We can see Bob, we see Bill, we see Larry in your eyes. Merv, Doug, Bud. Some of you got these crackers walking around with dreadlocks. That's one of the most dreadful scenes that you could ever see. There's a cracker with these phony, funny-looking dreadlocks. Brothers and sisters, humanism. If we look at it, you're the human being. You're the human being. You gave morality to the world. You gave ethics to the world. You gave spirituality, the notion even if they haven't accepted it, or nature won't allow them to receive it. You gave the notion of spirituality to the world. You gave religion to the world. You did. Before you, there were none. After you, there'll be no more. If you find a thing doing the same thing in every time zone, on every landmass, throughout the annals of time, you find it doing the same thing, then that should let you know that it cannot change. It's coded that way. It can't change. The white man can't change. The most honorable Elijah Muhammad said separation is the best and only solution. Look at him. I'm quoting him perfectly now. Come right on up, brothers and sisters. That seat's right here. He says separation is the best and only solution. Let's stop right there. If he said it was just the best solution, then you could say, well, there are some other solutions. But he said it's the best and only solution to the problem, the race problem that exists between black and white. Separation is the only solution. You praise the white man, some of us, not me. You praise him for his Declaration of Independence. You praise him for separating from the British Empire. The Declaration of Independence was an act of separation. 13 little scrawny colonies separated from the British Empire. Is that right? Paul Revere, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams. These faggots with pedal pushers and ruffles on their shirts and wigs on their head. Then the Minutemen. I'm not going to get into that. That's between them and their wives. I ain't got nothing to do with that. I don't know why their wives call them the Minutemen. This is such a serious subject, brothers and sisters. We have to lighten it up with a little humor every now and then. You give me the signal, brother, when would you like to have that break? Would you like to have it right now? How many would like to take the break now? How long should the break be? 15 to 20 minutes, and during that 15 to 20 minutes, what's procedure? How do we? All right. Brothers and sisters, let us now take our break, and we'll be back in a minute. Thank you. All of thank you.
This is not a question. I just wanted to say I was really impressed with what you said.
Hold on a second. Hold your positions, babies. Right over here. I'll let you know here. What's your name? Danielle, what's your name, baby? Marcia? And Alyssa? Get them both, these things cool. These little princess and strong black hands. Why don't you just have a seat right there, baby? There are 2 seats right there. All right? Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to say that I was really impressed with what you said about Martin Luther King. If he had talked about integrating ourselves, black Catholics, black Protestants, really a very strong point. Then I always think about what Jesus said about loving your enemy. He wasn't talking to the Jews or the Hebrews loving the Romans. He was talking about the Hebrews loving each other. And in that love, they would have really overcome the enemy, which was the Romans. And when Jesus really knew how to talk against the Pharisees, and I think your point was really very well taken, that if we stop loving the enemy, who's the white man, and start loving ourselves, West Indians and African Americans, West Indian, from the Spanish Caribbean, and all of that, we just cover the diaspora, we'll be really cool, and I really appreciate it. Sandy Figueroa from Hostos
Sister
Community.
Sandy Figueroa, give her a strong black hand. Let me get brother, and then I'll come here. Yes, sir. I saw your hand second.
Yeah, I enjoyed your speech. It was beautiful. What I wanted to ask you about, I seen that Geraldo fest in Washington. Big Ho walked out on you.
Geraldo.
Yeah, and I would like your comments on that, because it wasn't complete. He did like that when it wasn't going his way.
Yeah. Talking about when we were on the Geraldo Ho show. I call him Geraldo Ho because he's just prostituting himself. He's a disgrace to the Puerto Rican brothers and sisters. Absolute disgrace. And I say this, and I must say it, language does not determine family. Some of us speak Spanish. Some of us speak French. Some of us speak English, Portuguese. You sure he's right.
she is. The point here is that some of us have been bitten by a French dog, some by an English dog, some by a Spanish dog. It makes no difference. We've all been bitten by the same dog. It just speaks different languages. So when we walk the streets of New York or wherever we are, we can't be divided by language. Language cannot and should not divide us. This was just a main point that I wanted to make. Sister had covered her point quite well. There was no need to add to that. But the last part of your point, brother, was
He cut it when he cut the show.
when he cut it. That's your main
Because it
focus.
wasn't going,
Why?
it wasn't going his way.
I understand. It was supposed to go 2 hours, but we were told that it would go 2 hours. It was based on the Jews here in New York. We were in D.C. It was based on the Jews who controlled the show. They were watching it, of course, and they would determine whether it would go 2 hours or 1 hour. My presence was so disruptive. Just being there before I even said anything. The little sissy from Harvard, Poussin, Alvin Poussin. Now, brothers and sisters, we all knew a month before the show who was going to be on the show. He knew I was going to be on the show. I knew he was going to be on the show. We knew Chris Darden would be there. We knew that the warrior lawyer, attorney Malik Shabazz, would be on it. We knew, what's her name, Barbara Shipp. He doesn't want to be called Barbara. She just wants to be called Shipp. I'm not going to get into that. Sounds like some bullshit to me. I didn't say that other word. And the Negro from BET, Tavis Smiley.
Tavis.
He sleeps at Geraldo's home, and he visits him and stays over and everything. You know that anyway. You can't trust a nigga named Smiley. Nigga named Smiley, you can't trust him. Look. So before I even spoke, as you well saw, it was staged. Before it started, Poussin started whining backstage before we came out. He uses my spiritual father against me, as many people do, many places I go now. He used my spiritual father against me. He started telling Geraldo and all of them, look, I don't know, man, even Farrakhan got rid of this guy. We can't be on here with him. He's subject to say anything. We can't, if Farrakhan got rid of him, that's rough. He was trying to say, that what we think of Farrakhan. And this is a man that even Farrakhan had to get rid of and distance himself from. He was saying, now how are we going to go on with this show? So Geraldo, when we got ready to go on, he called me in the room, just the two of us. We sat in there and sipped a little juice and little tea and crumpets and whatever. Chris Darden was sitting there with his knees knocking, scared to death. I thought he was going to be the one. I had me a box of tissue. I had me a box of Kleenex. When I jumped on him, I was going to give him some Kleenex to dry his tears. I was going to call him the white man's nigger before the world. And I was going to say that he was just like a good, well-trained nigger from the plantation. That when the slave master had a nigger that had run away that he wanted to lynch, and the nigga got away before he could lynch him, he would send this fast nigga that he had trained, to run the nigga down and bring the nigga back. And you'll notice that when they lost that case, Chris Darden just broke down and he just cried. Marsha Clark took it like a man. Down and just boo-hoo. And I was going to say before the world that he was crying because he was begging the white man. He was telling the white man, don't get rid of me, boss. I know you wanted to lynch this nigga. I tried to catch the nigga. Niggas a Heisman Trophy. This nigga used to hurtling and running through them airports. I tried, folks. I'm sorry I let you down. If we got some more niggas, I'll catch them. I was a good prosecutor. It's a good prosecutor. And I was going to give him his tissue. Then I had People magazine showing Marsha Clark with a new boyfriend who plays in a rock band or something. White boy. She had turned him away from her place. She had been letting him come in. He showed her one day and she wouldn't let him in. He cried again. Johnny Cochran said in an interview that Chris met him in the hallway and told him, look, you leave my woman alone. So I was going to just dog him for being the white man's nigga. But he sat there just as calm and he didn't get into nothing. But old Poussat, who's supposed to be one of America's great scholars, supposed to be a heavy Negro scholar, supposed to be a psychiatrist Negro, supposed to be skilled in the mind. That lets you know these Negroes ain't nothing. And if you don't have a knowledge of self when you come out of these white folks' institutions, you ain't got nothing. You get a BS degree. You get a BS degree, that's all it is. It's bull S, BS. You get an MS degree, more of the same. You get a PhD degree, piled high and deep. And so this Negro puts on a show. And he uses my spiritual father before the world. He says, this man, we all know that Minister Farrakhan, even Minister Farrakhan had to get rid of him. We know that he has said all of these things. I can't sit here on this show with him, and you can boo me if you want to, but I'm going to get up and leave right now. And this Tom gets up, and I stand up behind him and say, see ya. See ya, I'm driving. Maybe they'll accept you back. Your white folks and your Jews will accept you back at Harvard when you get back. But this was so when he goes among them, they'll all pat him on the head, pat him on the butt, and tell him what a good nigga he is. I'm so glad you did that Khalid Muhammad like that. So then Geraldo, they tried to box me in. He had Tavis Smiley on one side, and they had planned it. Ship on the other side. And the three of them were supposed to deal with Malik. And if I came with a crossfire from Malik to me, they felt they could handle it and contain anything. So then when we raised the point, I raised the point that shook the whole thing. Is when I said that the reason he was, as Malik had laid the stage and the charges for him already, against him already, and said he had gone absolutely OJ crazy. I point out the reason he had gone OJ crazy is because the station and the network is owned and controlled by Jews, and that they had put him out there to do that. That the jury is not a sequestered jury. The jury goes home every night, and so he retries OJ and the day's proceedings on TV every night, so that whatever they dealt with in courtroom during the daytime, he could erase it, hopefully, at night. They put him there on the point to do that. And I said, and you have a tarnished relationship with the Goldman family, and your mama is a Jew. And he just went wild. You're going to get personal with me. And he has a big tattoo of the so-called Star of David or the Mogen Daoud on his hand, right here. He said, I'm proud of my Star of David. So this is exposing him and pulling the cover off of him that his mom is a Jew. And then I went on to say, and you have a behind closed doors relationship. He's sleeping with Denise Brown, who is the sister of Nicole Brown. He went buck wild. You gotta go to a break. You're getting personal. You're getting too personal. And then we had to set up our comrade in the struggle, Brother Hiram Ashanti. Our comrade in the struggle, Brother Hiram Ashanti, who's representing Brother Kabir Hadass from West Philly. We set it up before. He came to the mic, he told him that he was going to ask something else. that he was going to say, well, look, we didn't agree with OJ being here in this community and in this church and that Khalid Muhammad. And they said, oh, come on. And they brought him up to the mic. And he got up to the mic, and Brother Hiram Ashanti laid it all out. He said, with the skinheads and the Ku Klux Klan and the militia and the Freemen and the ADL, and he said, you're going to put all of them together in the same category? And he fights him down, Hiram Ashanti. He says, and I want to ask Dr. Khalid Muhammad, should black men take up arms? Should black men have guns now?
That's it.
Geraldo went crazy. Bishop, you don't want that kind of question asked here in the church, do you? We're going to go to a break. So you're not going to let me answer the question here? No, that question can't be. We're not going to allow that question to be answered here. I mean, it was a blessing. Some people say, well, I wish it could have gone the second hour. It was a victory. Yes. When you go on that kind of program, you're supposed to blow it up. Yes, sir. It was disruptive. Right. And still we got a message across. Right. And so that's why it didn't go the second hour, and that's why it just flopped. It just ended. And then he tried to run it for a couple of weeks after that. He did excerpts from it, lifting sound bites from each of us.
And he let everybody know he gave $7,000.
He gave $7,000. Well, the preacher kept begging. Wasn't he begging? Well, Geraldo, you promised us. You said, Geraldo, that you were going to give us some money. He said, well, I gave you some money, nigga. In words, I gave you some money. He said, but now we got to tell you what we really need. That's the reason I let you in here. As you said, Geraldo, I got the tape upstairs. And Geraldo said, oh, this is not going. Every time the bishop opened his mouth, he was begging for some money. It's embarrassing. Like the old Negro preacher on the plantation, you want an old buttered biscuit and a piece of fat back at the back door. And he would have been happy. Any other questions? I saw Sister Viola Plummer, distinguished revolutionary in our midst.
We are indeed indebted to you, not for a speech, brothers and sisters, but for a program of action. So my question isn't to Dr. Khalid, because he's doing his work. My question is, what are we going to do?
Okay. Anybody? That's all the phone. That wasn't rhetorical. That wasn't rhetorical. That was a revolutionary, pointed question. Anybody want to answer that? What she is saying simply is, brothers and sisters, that these kinds of forums are valuable to us. They are most important for the dissemination of information and to destroy the disinformation campaign of our enemy. That they are most important. But we leave out top-heavy. And we start practicing, I'm teaching my son this term, hagiography. We become hagiographers. That's those who call on the name of the greats and the saints. Every time something comes up, we say, Malcolm said it. Dr. Ben said it. Dr. Clark said it. Dr. Jeffries said it. We just start Nkrumah said, calling on the name of the greats. But what Sister Viola is talking about is a program, a practical program of revolutionary action. Some of you have heard so many scholars. Some of you got walls of tapes, walls of books. You can quote just about anything, anytime, anywhere, to anybody. But 30 years after Malcolm, 30 years after Martin, what are we going to do? I'll tell you the way Malcolm told you. I'll repeat those words and paraphrase them 30 years later. You can stay right in the church. Just accept revolutionary nationalism as your primary goal and objective. You can stay right in the mosque. But let's unite under the banner and program of revolutionary nationalism. You can stay right in your fraternity. You can stay right in your sorority. You can stay right in your civil rights organization. We need you in all of those organizations so that you can be agents for revolutionary change inside of those organizations where you are already loved and respected. We must build an African united front, a black united front that transcends ideology and boundaries, and where we have common goals and common objectives, and we're putting into place a spiritual, cultural, political, revolutionary apparatus that can move our people toward freedom and independence. That's what she's asking. She's saying, you seem like you enjoyed it. It looked like a revolutionary revival in you. Yes, it did. So she said, now that you're excited, happy, feeling good, some of you mad, you were provoked to anger. You ain't been that mad in a long time, and I intended to make you mad. She said, now how do we translate this into action? You know December 12th movement, the December 12th movement's movement and work in the community, the New York 8. You know the revolutionary commitment and the years of relentless, no let-up commitment. Is there anybody who really wants to do something after we do this? I ain't talking about no foolishness. Going out and attacking the white man's tanks with bricks. Throwing hot bean pies at the SWAT squad. Throwing a videotape. Or a revolutionary book at the white man. I'm not talking about nothing silly. But with the conscious among us, the conscious community, we're criminals. The conscious community is involved in criminal activity. It's a criminal enterprise. How? Because you have the knowledge, you have the wisdom, you have the understanding, you have the consciousness. We have it. What do we do? We have these forums. We talk about how the white man is shooting us down, how he's killing us, how he's murdering us, how our political prisoners are locked up. America's foreign policy program to Africa, which ain't gonna never change. Give a damn who's in the White House or the outhouse. Doesn't make any difference. What are we gonna do? Don't you want to find some way that we can unite beyond our organizations? Find some kind of organization of organizations? There must be someone in here is so moved. This is like church. You know, when the preacher start now after he's preached, the preacher asks you now who will come. Who does not have a church home? In other words, I'm saying who in here is conscious and know you're not doing a damn thing. Some of you just like to be heavy. You know, you just like to talk stuff. You know, you can quote all the stuff and you like to run it down. You be at the job, dazzling everybody on the job, even Peckerwoods, and everybody be listening. You at school, you got everybody, even the professor. The professor's scared of you when you walk into class. You come in with George, G.M. James, Diop, everybody. The professor damn near hide. That's revolutionary too. But can't we come together? Can't we all get it on? Can't we all just get it on? I'm begging you. Can't we all just get it on? That's what she's asking. Do we have a mailing list here? Did we make a mailing list? Did we get everybody's name, address, and phone number that's here?
No.
Let's circulate a couple of legal pads and tablets in the audience. Can be kept here at D&J, and I think Sister Viola should take a copy of that with her. And I'll be working with December 12th and New York 8 from this point on. I believe that we all have to put down these artificial barriers. You don't have to be, die a tribe and be born a nation. All this tribalism. I'm from this tribe. I'm from that tribe. My tribe wear this. My tribe wears that. I roll with everybody. I'm with the brothers with the bow ties and the semis. To me, that's real. I go all over the country, and everywhere there's a revolutionary, radical movement, I hook up with them immediately. Co-chairman of the new Black Panther Party this coming. So how you gonna be with the Black Panther Party and you? What's the contradiction? There's no contradiction. Let's reinforce each other. Minister Farrakhan said to you at the Million Man March, join an organization. Huh? Minister Farrakhan is the leader of the Nation of Islam. He's also a lifetime member of the NAACP. Yes, he is. He's a member of NAILS, or NALS, the National African American Leadership Summit with Ben Chavis and Jesse and all of them in there. That's all right. That's all right. I want to join a national revolutionary movement where all the radicals, the militants, and revolutionaries come together. And we'll give this white man hell from one end of the country to the other end of the country, with Minister Farrakhan organizing the civil rights leaders and the pastors. And ain't nothing funny about that, because these are people we ain't been able to get together.
That's right.
We ain't been able to catch them. We ain't been able to get them to even halfway respect each other in the same room. He's able to do that. But I want to organize all the radicals, all the revolutionaries, the freedom fighters, nationalists, Pan-Africanists, those who want to build a black power movement. Ain't no contradiction in that. That means we got the white man going and coming. Huh? Hassling him and harassing him in all of his flights. So let's circulate this list. One to be left with D&J, Brother Mark, and brothers and sisters here at D&J, and one with Sister Viola, if you don't mind, because it was she who put us on this path here tonight, at least, with that profound question. Is there anyone here who has you've already given, but you want to give a more substantial donation? Is there anyone here who would like to give 10 or 20? Sister Viola Plummer, there's babies, where the babies? Where'd they go? He said, that man talks so much.
The brothers up front.
Brother Craig, go to Sister Viola. Just step right on. Any other donations? Is there anybody who'll give 10? As one, get brother's name. Brother Craig, would you know how to do it? Would you get his name and call it off quickly, sir? Brother Darrell, $20. Give him a strong hand, brothers and sisters. And Sister Viola Plummer, give her a strong hand. Are there any other donations? Let's do this quickly and take our last few questions. Are there any other donations? Brother Monroe, $5. Give him a strong hand. Come on, brothers and sisters. You broke, you can at least encourage all children. Come on, give him a black hand. Even if you broke, you can do better than that. Are there any other donations? 5, 10, 20s, any hundreds, any 50s? Any good checks?
Good check.
Let's make sure that this list continues to circulate. Are there any other donations? Is there anyone else who will give 5? Even if you've given already, give 5, give 10. 5s, 10s. All right, I'll come back to you. Think about it again. Are there any other questions? Is that it on the questions? One more question. Is this our last question? That's our last question.
In light of what's going on in New York City, in light of what's going on in New York City with police brutality, okay, I was listening to Al Sharpton this morning on News 1, and I really haven't been willing to vote, okay, because I know it's a bunch of garbage. But for this time, right now, okay, I know that we really have to get the police up off us because they're definitely brutalizing themselves. I see it every day. Okay, right now I'm a union rep on my job. Okay, and I converse with a lot of people on a daily basis, going to work, coming from work, and all I see is arrogance. You name it, they do it. Even from looking at the sisters walking down the street in tight stuff, not licking their lips and blowing kisses, you know what I'm saying? And it's very degrading to you. Now, even though I don't vote, what Brother Al Sharpton was saying today made a lot of sense to me. And for right now, would you consider him to be back, or should we look into backing him for the mayoral run? Because I really don't try not to get into politics unless I feel it's worthwhile for blacks or if it's going to benefit my family and my loved ones. So would you tell me if you personally would back Sharpton if he's going to bring change, and from what he was saying today, it made a lot of sense to me.
Well, first of all, I don't vote, and I never have. And even if I could, I wouldn't. There would have to be some very special circumstances that would cause me to vote. And under those special circumstances, then perhaps it would be possible. So far, I haven't seen those special circumstances. And right now, as I said, I'm an ex-convict, proud to say. Something on my resume that I'm proud to have there. That's a school that I wouldn't have volunteered to enroll in, but since it's on my resume, I'm happy that it's there, and happy about what I did while I was there. So I can't vote now, but there are those of you who can vote. I would have to say that any strong candidate that is running against Giuliani, that I would have to give some kind of support to that candidate. I am not one who would speak against Reverend Sharpton running for mayor against Rudolph, is that his name? Adolf Giuliani. So, my brother, I would have to say that, do you know any other candidates that are running? Anybody else? If there are any revolutionary nationalist candidates running, then I would have to swing my support behind the revolutionary nationalist candidate. But if there are no revolutionary nationalist candidates running, and Giuliani certainly is not a viable option for us to have to contemplate, I would have to say that if Reverend Sharpton is the candidate that from among us that is running, and we have no revolutionary nationalists who has gained the reputation that we would swing our vote and support behind, that those of you who vote, that it's a decision that you should make. I don't think you have much of a choice, meaning you don't have a real decision to make. It's not a real decision that you have to make. I mean, but there's some Negroes who go vote for Giuliani. Some Negroes who go vote for Giuliani, straight up. So I think it's ridiculous to vote for Giuliani under any circumstances if you're a voter. And if Reverend Sharpton is the candidate running against him and a black man from among us, then I don't think you should have to make any real decision. I wouldn't go get it at all. Yes, sir. I'll come to you.
There's a fund to elect the next black mayor of the city of New York that has a slate of candidates. They're not candidates, they're draftees. And the process is still open to anybody who wants to be nominated, or anybody who wants to nominate someone. The key people who are running it are the brother Andy Gill and Ira Williams. The process is that you pay for someone that you want to nominate. It's a $500 cost. There will be a convention in which there's for $99, anyone who has $99 to put up, an organization that has $99 to put up, whatever it is, can have a seat on the delegates. The candidates so far that have been drafted, if someone has put forward $500 to nominate, Sister Adelaide Sanford, Reverend Dennis Dillon, Felipe Luciano, Marta Vega. There's a list, and my name was submitted also on the list. I'm not a politician, haven't ever run for anything, but I was the first candidate drafted. In fact, I was gotten there under a ruse. I was asked to come there to give an award to someone and found out that I was drafted. I don't expect obviously to run for mayor, but if somebody has those kinds of aspirations, they could get into that process, and they could also help to promote the convention. The convention will be happening around February the 21st. In the absence of any other process whereby the people as a whole, or our people as a whole, can put forth a slate of candidates, to me the fund to elect the next black mayor is a viable option. Also, Reverend Sharpton is one of the draftees, and he has agreed to participate in that process. At this point, it looks to me, just as an observer, that he's probably going to win. But if someone wanted a different kind of candidate, that process is open.
Okay. Let's hear everybody. I'm going to get brother and come in.
As a revolutionary, how do you feel about a system, if it's already been put in place, to be able to rechannel our funds back into our pockets?
It would depend on that. You know of a system like that that's already been put in place?
Yes, I do.
What is that system?
Black Heritage Products?
I would have to say that any program, especially after having been talking strongly as I have been by the Honorable Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, that any program that is a program that is of us and a program that will benefit us, I would have to be found backing that program and encouraging others to do the same.
So is there a way I could perhaps get the information to you, or?
Certainly. At the close of this meeting, we'll exchange.
All means.
Sister Viola.
I wanted to speak to the brother's point.
Yes, ma'am.
The brother raised the question of these police in the street and the killings and the rest of it. Mm-hmm. And with all due respect to everybody's political position, that the electoral system, the mayor, governor, all of those people, will never affect any change for black people. We went through this process in the 60s with King Gibson, okay? And all I want to tell brothers is that if the police got a program called Zero Tolerance. Yes. The only way that we're going to put the police in check is to make the tolerance go from 0 to 100. And see, and people are going to run it. She's talking, and throwing rocks at tanks, and that's crazy. But what I am saying is that if you want to put the police in check, and there's you, this brother, that brother, that brother, and that brother that say they want to put him in check, and y'all see the police being out of control, it's your duty to step to it. Because that is the only way we're going to put the police in check. There's not a mayor, I don't care how black, how
That's right.
revolutionary,
That's right.
how much money he's going
That's
to
right.
raise, is going to put the police in check.
It's
Because
true.
the police don't work for him.
Okay.
Okay? So that, and see, that's what I'm talking, because I lived in Queens all my life. These, out here, you know what I'm saying? Don't nothing go down out here. Crackers kill black people at will. Not only police, crackers in general kill black people. I don't know what happened to the black men in this community, Khalid. I don't know what happened to them. They got their dashikis and their dreads and they this and that.
Oh,
And
that's
police
right.
run rampant out here.
That's right.
I said, what are we going to do? Nothing. And you know why? Because they're going to sit. She said this, the other one said that. This is that. My program is the other. And when the police get ready, they're going to shoot them down. And until we decide that when we see the police out of control, we step to them, they ain't going to stop. And if you think you scared to die, then be clear. The only way you're going to leave here is you're going to die. And you can't prescribe when that's going to be. Oh, don't chase no mayors. Niggas, if you want to get rid of the police, you got to step to them.
That's right. Let me back that point up and underscore that point.
Yes, it does.
When you elected Dinkins,
Right.
you believed that Dinkins was going to be a goddamn miracle mayor. When you elected that coke nigger in Washington, D.C., Marion Scary, you believed it was going to make a difference. When you elected Uncle Tom Bradley
Yes.
in Los Angeles, when you elect these Negroes, you think that it's going to change our condition. It does not change it. I'm looking at the expression on one or two faces in here. And you say, well, you know, that's kind of extreme, you know, step to the police, you know, can't we just vote? Step to the police, can't we just have another forum? Maybe can we read some poetry? Something. Step to them. Look, go and buy you a ski mask. Black. Just the eyes, the nose, and the mouth out. This ain't coming from me. This is what I'm hearing everywhere I go, different places across the country. After Johnny Gambage, I just came out of Pittsburgh. I was down in St. Petersburg after Tyrone Lewis. And they were saying to me, I'm quoting them, they were saying, go, tell me. I went and bought me one. And the next time I showed up, the second time in St. Petersburg, not St. Petersburg, in Oakland and down and over in Pittsburgh, they asked me where was my mask. So my son got one and I got one. Why did they tell me to get a mask? Well, I guess I'm beginning to understand it now. For you agents who are here, I'm learning like you. And, look, they said to me, get you a ski mask. Go and get you a ski mask. So I said, well, ski mask. They say so that when you step to the police, you got your mask, you pull it out of your pocket, you put it on, you thrash some ass, you put on your mask, and then thrash some ass. And then you disappear. The only way they say it, I'm listening to them now, like I'm just reporting it to you like Walter Cronkite. And they say the only way we're going to defeat this devil is guerrilla warfare. They say we got to make a noise in the east and strike in the west. Avoid strength and strike weakness. They say that when the enemy is off guard, this is what they're telling me in all these places. I'm talking to the gang members, the gang bangers, I'm talking to different revolutionaries all over the country while I'm not in New York. And they're saying, carry a ski mask. You got one cracker, two crackers beating the hell out of a brother, misusing a brother or a sister. 3 or 4 brothers, they say in these towns, they say they're getting tired of that. They say they're going to start donning their ski mask and stomping the hell out of these crackers, and if necessary, some of them said even killed him. I said, ooh. That's what they told me. So any of you agents, you can take me to court. I'll tell the white folks in the court. It didn't come from me. That's what I heard. My lawyer is here. Brother Roger is back there. Look, they're saying, brothers and sisters, and I'm beginning to understand that more and more. It's not going to change. You just voting and hoping. You know, it's not going to change. Somebody in this political position or that political position or another political position, they'll get some little minimal thing done, and they'll do a little something here, a little something there. That's all right. But what brothers, he stood up on a strong point. And his point has to be answered that way. If you just want to vote, brother, that's up to you. As I said to the rest of you, you have to make that decision. But if you want to stop the white man from doing this, we got to organize. We have to organize. Some of the toughest brothers you can imagine are in these cities. Tough as they can be. Hell on each other. Beat the hell out of each other. Kill each other in a minute, in a New York second. But scared to death of the white man. You see, some of you Negroes don't want to fight the white man. You think we can't fight him. You know, we just take this, you know, and hope he don't kill us. He's too powerful. He's too strong. That's a coward. Damn it, they say, get your ski mask. Everybody. So that you can cover that face. And even if you go to court, you got a good chance of walking. Got a good chance of walking.
Khalid, I submit that if everybody in here went and bought a ski mask, that would spare practice.
So what we're looking for a slate of ski mask candidates. I'm looking for a slate of ski. I'm not joking. God damn it, I'm not joking.
Does the Black Heritage sell ski masks?
Sir?
Does the Black Heritage sell ski masks?
No, I'm sure they're going to start saying that. I'm sure they are. I'm tired of this. Aren't you tired of this? Can't you see we just go around and around and around in the same vicious cycle? I vote for this one. I'll vote for that one. I hope this some white man will. I talked to a Muslim. It hurt me to my heart. From the Nation of Islam. He told me how he had voted for. He voted for Clinton. But he told me how he had voted for the governors. Who were the two? Pataki, and who was the other candidate? Cuomo. That he voted for Cuomo because he hated Pataki. I said, well, that's tacky to vote for either one of them. I said, why would you vote for either one of the crackers? Just don't vote. You ain't going to end up no worse off, and you ain't going to end up no better off. Unless you do some other things that we haven't tried yet. So I'm just sharing with you the things that I've heard around the country. Now, according to what I've heard, we need to raise another $120. Can we raise that $120 from everybody in here? I'm sure we can. Is it everybody give $3, $4, $5, or 2 or 3? Take it out. Let's go and pick it up. Let's raise the 120 and let's finish. If you got 20, put that in there. If you got 10, put that in there. Let's finish it up. I asked what was needed, and they told me what was needed. Let's put some 10s and 20s and 5s. Hurry, quickly with the baskets. People get tired. You gotta move quickly. To some of the others here, my son reminded me, and it's true. You know, some of you feel that that Reverend Sharpton has done things in the community to come to the aid of the community. Many of you believe on many occasions. Some of you believe that Reverend Sharpton has done some things in the community that are detrimental to the community. That's why the decision must be made by you. I've shared with some of you that from a revolutionary standpoint, a revolutionary has to operate sometimes behind enemy lines, but you can't lose your mind while you're operating behind enemy lines. And we must have allies in various camps. And some of you saw the piece that came out in the Village Voice with me supporting Reverend Sharp. Well, no one ever came to me and asked me if I supported Reverend Sharp. I wasn't interviewed by anyone or anything. It is true, and I'm not ashamed to say before this audience that Reverend Sharpton has supported me on certain issues behind the scenes.
Some publicly. And in truth and reality, I would have to say that to you, and there are others who have done so. But from that camp, it's rare, for whatever reason, that one would offer any support to me. In some of those camps, I'm the litmus test. It's true, in some of them. So I had to say that, so that the word goes out correctly and with balance from me. But I'm for the solution that I'm hearing all across the country more than anything else. Did we collect what you needed, Brother Mo? Okay. Yes, sir. We got to get out of here. Yes, sir. You had a question, sir? All right. Yes, sir.
Just on opinion and touch on everything that Clemens was saying here today. And I'd like to touch on something you said earlier about a comment. Sister right here, brothers in here, everybody talking about there's lots of that. Your comment was not me. All right, I'm the brother that helps fighting for the brothers, like help lift up other people. People ask why sisters walking down the street with their lollipops in their mouth, their skirts, why their brain dead. We got school these sisters. We have school these brothers. Why are they walking around these types of ways? Why are they wearing pants halfway down to their knees? They're dead in the mind. We educate the mind, the behind will follow, actually. And then, as you said, unified religion. Religion is a way of practice. But when we everybody call we say God, we shall unite that way and to continue to go that way.
Thank you, sir. Let's get a brother a strong black hand. I can't leave you out, my brother. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Okay. First of all, I have never met Akbar Muhammad. You know, there are two Akbar Muhammads. There's Minister Akbar Muhammad, who is the international ambassador of the Nation of Islam under the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, based in Ghana. This is not the Akbar Muhammad that brother is referring to. What's your name, brother? I know you well. Brother Yusuf, absolutely. He's referring to the youngest son by Sister Clara Muhammad of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Akbar Muhammad. Studied at Al-Azhar in Cairo and some other places. I have never met him and never had any direct contact with Brother Akbar Muhammad, son of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Your question about how Wallace D. Muhammad could become so patriotic, really it was a choice to some degree that he made. Beyond that, when he was born, October 30th, 1933, when he was born, Master Farad Muhammad, at that time, was getting ready to leave his student, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Two men were born in 1933 who have made tremendous impact. Wallace D. Muhammad was born October 30th, 1933, and Minister Louis Farrakhan was born May 11th, 1933. They were both born in the year that Master Farad Muhammad was leaving his student and his choice, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When Sister Clara Muhammad was carrying Wallace D. Muhammad, Master Farad Muhammad wrote his name on the back of the door. And I have tapes of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad national radio broadcast and in Message to the Black Man, page 306, 307, and 308. If you have a Message to the Black Man here anywhere, I'll read it to you. Where the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says on national radio broadcast, and he touches on it in the Message to the Black Man, 306, 307, and 308, that he knew of Wallace Muhammad from early in his life or before he was even born, really. He knew what he would do against him. Do you have Message to the Black Man here? He says on this tape that Wallace Muhammad even had plotted and planned his own son to kill him, he said. That he had lifted up not only his mouth, but was preparing with guns, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says on this tape, to kill him. He gave us the history of different divine ones in the scripture and their sons and their wives, and how their sons and wives had turned against them. He takes us to the Holy Quran as well, to the 11th chapter of the Holy Quran. Thank you, sir. Remind me to come back to the 11th chapter of the Holy Quran. Question. You listening? Page 306. Answer to the critics. My mission is to give life. Earlier, when we spoke of defections, those who break away from you, you mentioned something about the fact that Jesus has similar defections. Would you answer? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Yes, such defections are nothing. The public should not think it strange. This time in which we live, we have the actual Spirit of God moving among the people. Question. Well now, in time, sir, your grandson, Sharif, or your son, Wallace, or Malcolm, ever expressed the desire to return to follow you again, would you accept them? Answer. There is nothing unforgivable. The Holy Quran teaches you. The only thing that is unforgivable is this, that you will not accept Allah as God and not accept his messenger as his messenger. These two things are one. We say the belief in Allah is the belief in his messenger of the prophet of Allah, as the prophet of Allah. The belief in the messenger or the prophet of Allah is a belief in Allah. If you disbelieve in one, you disbelieve in both. You cannot believe in one and disbelieve in the other. This is the knowledge the world has not realized, and this is what God wants the world to know. I'm getting ready to drop the bomb in a minute. When God chooses his representative for the people, he speaks to the people through that representative. And if the people will accept that representative, we call them prophets, apostles, or messengers, then they are accepting Allah. But if they reject him and still say they believe in Allah, they are considered enemies of Allah and disbelievers, because that is Allah in that representative, and you cannot accept one without accepting the other. You have got to accept both. You cannot get the blessings of Allah if you reject his messenger. Now these boys that you are referring to, they do not worry me. I do not give my time arguing with them or talking about why they believe or disbelieve. I do not even argue with them because I knew these things in the beginning. I knew they would act like this, some of them. I was told about this 34 years ago. Now, the book came out approximately in the mid-60s. 34 years ago is the time that Wallace Muhammad at that time was born. But they did not know these things, and I am not excited as the public would be, or as the public would like to see. In some cases, if the son disbelieves in his father must be wrong. But that is not so when it comes to a messenger of God. If we say that it is true, then it stands true in the common life of the family. There are some children who never sincerely accept their fathers as they should. There are some fathers who never accept their children as they should. So this is the nature of the human family of the earth, and when it comes to spiritual teachings, it is also the same. Not all of the family of a messenger are such as Noah and Lot. They do not always have true believers, but that did not detract one atom from his messengership. You do not take advantage of that unless you get into war or trouble with God. You do not say, I do not believe in him because his wife or his son does not believe in him. Why should I follow him? You would be getting yourself in trouble because that is given. I do not care anything about those who fall away from me after I have pointed out the truth to them, and despite this, they get wrong and go away from that truth. I'm almost finished. I am not responsible for this. For whatever they say against me, it is against themselves. What they preach and tell the people in order to get the people to disbelieve in me is much like Absalom and his father David. Absalom stole the affection of the people because he thought he looked better and younger than David. He thought, therefore, the people would follow him and that he could steal the people over to himself and get rid of his father as king and be the king himself. But he was not to be the king. The man that was to be the king had yet to be known. That was Solomon. These facts are all put there to deepen our knowledge, and time repeats these things over and over again. And so this is what we face today, and I'm not surprised. The public is surprised, some of them, at the deviation of Malcolm or my son Wallace. I am not surprised, but they cannot yet say I am not the messenger of Allah. They cannot take that away from me. Page 306, 307, 308. He talks about Absalom, the son of David, and how Absalom, very quickly, how Absalom tried to steal the affection of his father and his father's followers. He turns to the 11th chapter of the Holy Quran and how Noah's son turned against him, and how ultimately God said to Noah, he is not your son. He is the very embodiment of evil and unrighteous conduct. If you ask me about that son one more time, I will drown you along with the disbelievers. And so Wallace Muhammad had left his father at least 3 times and went out against his father. He always, more or less, kind of leaned toward the American way. When he spoke in Atlanta, Georgia, in his Atlanta address, he said this. He said, if America is attacked by a Muslim nation or an African nation, he said he would be on the side of America. He said, I am not going to jump up out of my nation against some foreign nation. And I'm not lying on him at all. He went on to say, even if my nation is wrong, I will fight within my nation to correct my nation, but I am not going to jump up out of my nation to fight against my nation.